I used to live in a small house on the edge of town. Nothing fancy, just one of those quiet single-story homes with creaking floors and too many memories built into the walls. I was 19, living with my mom at the time. She worked night shifts at a local hospital, which meant I was usually alone from late evening until early morning. That was fine with me. I'd grown up used to the quiet, but there was something different about that house after midnight. It didn't feel empty. It felt aware, like it was holding its breath and waiting for me to notice something. It started with a dream. In the dream, I was standing in the hallway of our house. Everything was completely silent. The light from my bedroom spilled weakly into the corridor, just enough to outline the frames of family photos on the wall. I remember feeling like I wasn't supposed to be there. I wasn't walking. I was just standing. I could see the end of the hallway, where the door to my mom's room was slightly open. The air in the dream felt heavy, thick, like breathing through water. Then, from the dark end of the hall, I saw movement. Something pale stepped halfway into the light. At first, it looked like a person, tall, thin, wearing something white. But the more I tried to focus, the less clear it became. Its head tilted unnaturally like a puppet on strings, and when I tried to move or speak, I couldn't. The thing began walking toward me slowly with this dragging sound like bare feet on old wood. I wanted to wake up, but my body refused. The closer it came, the clearer its face became, until I realized it wasn't a face at all. It was a blur, a shifting patch of static like the surface of an old television. It stopped just a few feet away. I could feel it breathing. Then I woke up. My heart was pounding. My room was cold. The digital clock on my nightstand read 3:27 a.m. For a long time, I just sat there listening to the faint hum of the refrigerator, the clock ticking, the house settling. It was nothing unusual, but for some reason, every sound that night felt intentional, like the house knew I was awake. I told myself it was just a nightmare, but the dreams didn't stop. The next time, the dream started the same way, me standing in the hallway, the air thick and heavy. The only difference was that this time the bedroom lights were off. The hall was darker. I couldn't see the figure at first, but I could hear it, that slow, dragging footstep. It was coming from the direction of my mom's room again. The sound got closer until I saw it, just a shape in the dark, moving wrong, like every joint bent slightly the wrong way. Then it spoke. Not in words, more like a whisper inside my head. "You shouldn't be awake." I woke up gasping for air. My chest hurt like I'd been holding my breath for too long. The clock read 3:27 a.m. again. That number stuck with me. Same time, same dream. I couldn't shake the feeling that it wasn't random. The pattern over. The next week, I started noticing strange things around the house. Little things, but enough to make me second-guess myself. My bedroom door would be open in the morning, even though I always closed it before sleeping. The hallway light would flicker at night just once or twice. And one night, when I got up to grab water, I could have sworn I saw a shadow pass by the kitchen doorway, tall and thin, just like in my dream. I tried telling myself I was overtired. College stress. Lack of sleep. But deep down, I knew what was happening. The dream wasn't staying a dream anymore. It was leaking into my real life. That weekend, my mom had 2 back-to-back overnight shifts, which meant I'd be home alone both nights. The first night went fine. I tried to stay awake until sunrise by watching YouTube on my phone, but I must have drifted off around 2 a.m. And then it happened again. I was back in the hallway, but this time everything was different. The lights were flickering and the air smelled like damp wood and metal. The photos on the wall were gone, replaced with long, deep scratches that ran across the plaster. I could hear whispering from behind my mom's door, soft, urgent, like someone talking through gritted teeth. I stepped closer even though every instinct screamed not to. The door creaked open by itself. Inside was darkness so thick it looked solid. But there was something in there. I couldn't see it, but I could hear breathing. Slow, deep, and wet, like something enormous was trying to stay quiet. I whispered, "Who's there?" The whispering stopped. Then a hand came out of the dark, pale, shaking with long fingers that brushed against the doorframe, followed by that same voice in my head whispering, "You're almost awake." I jolted out of bed. Clock 3:27 am only this time. Something was different. The hallway light was on. I was sure I hadn't turned it on before sleeping. I got up, heart pounding, and stepped to the doorway. The air in the hallway felt cold, like the AC had been running full blast even though it was off. Everything looked normal except one of the picture frames on the wall was crooked, and beneath it I saw it, 5 thin scratches etched into the paint. After that night, I didn't sleep properly for days. Every time I closed my eyes, I'd hear that whisper, faint but clear. "You're almost awake." I started keeping a notebook next to my bed, writing down every dream detail I could remember. The pattern was getting clearer. Always in the hallway, always at 3:27 a.m., always that same presence coming closer. I started setting alarms for 3:20 so I could wake up before it reached me. It worked for a while, until the night I forgot to set it. That night I fell asleep without realizing, and the dream picked up where it left off. This time, the figure was already in front of me, closer than ever. I could finally make out more details. Its skin was grayish, its hands trembling, and its face still a blur of shifting static. It whispered something new this time. "Now it's your turn." Then it reached out and touched my chest. I woke up screaming. And I wasn't in bed. I was standing in the hallway, barefoot, in the dark. The digital clock in my room glowed faintly from the open doorway, 3:27 a.m. I didn't sleep for almost 2 days after that. Every time I closed my eyes, I'd see flashes of the hallway, the hand, the voice. When my mom finally came home and saw the state I was in, she thought I'd had a panic attack or a breakdown from stress. I tried to explain, but how do you tell someone your dreams are becoming real without sounding insane? I ended up showing her the scratches on the wall. She frowned, ran her fingers over them, and said quietly, "That's strange. I painted this hallway last month. These weren't here. I moved out a few weeks later to stay with a friend across town. My mom still lives in that house. She says sometimes late at night, she hears footsteps in the hallway when she's home alone. I've never told her about the time she called me last month at 3:30 a.m. She said she woke up to someone whispering from her doorway. When she turned on the light, no one was there, but the hallway light was on. It's been over a year since I left that house. I don't dream about the hallway anymore. But I've noticed something strange. No matter where I sleep, I always wake up at 3:27 a.m., and sometimes, when I get up to get water or check my phone, I see something out of the corner of my eye, a faint, flickering silhouette at the end of whatever hallway I'm standing in. I try not to look at it directly, because deep down, I know what it's waiting for. It's waiting for me to fall asleep again, so it can finish what it started. I still remember the sound of that bell, that sharp, echoing clang that used to mark the end of every class at Ridgeview High. It's been 6 years since I graduated, but sometimes when I wake up from that same dream, I can still hear it ringing in my ears. Back then I was a senior. I wasn't exactly popular, more like invisible. The kind of student teachers forgot was in the room. But that anonymity didn't bother me. It kept me out of trouble. I spent most of my time in the art room after class, drawing whatever came to mind. It started one Thursday afternoon in October. The light through the old classroom windows had that washed-out end-of-day look. My art teacher had stepped out to talk to another teacher, leaving me alone. I remember staring at the window, half daydreaming, when I must have nodded off for just a minute, and that's when I saw her. In the dream, the classroom looked the same chairs, same light, same faint smell of paint, but everything outside the window was wrong. The sky wasn't blue. It was gray and rippling, like water filmed in slow motion. There was someone standing just beyond the glass, a girl maybe my age with her forehead pressed against the pane. Her hair covered most of her face. I thought it was a reflection at first until she lifted a hand and knocked on the glass. The sound was loud, too loud for a dream. Then she mouthed something I couldn't hear, but I knew exactly what she was saying. "Let me in." I woke up so suddenly that my chair tipped backward. The art teacher ran back in, asking if I was okay. I laughed it off, blaming lack of sleep. But that night, when I closed my eyes, I saw the window again. The next night, the dream returned. Same classroom, same window, same girl, only this time she wasn't outside. She was standing inside the room by the door. Her skin was pale, almost translucent, and her eyes looked empty. Not white, not black, just colorless, like someone had drained all the life out of them. She whispered something, her voice muffled by distance. You left it open. I woke up gasping. My window, my real bedroom window, was open a crack even though I never opened it at night. Cold air was spilling in. I slammed it shut, trying not to think about what that meant. The next day at school, I couldn't focus. I told my friend Mara about the dream while we ate lunch. She laughed, saying I'd probably watched too many horror movies. But when I mentioned the girl's face, Mara froze. She pulled out her phone and showed me a picture. It was an old yearbook photo, someone from 2 years before we started high school. A girl named Lila Moreno. She'd gone missing after staying late in the art room. Police had searched the area, but she was never found. According to rumors, she'd been seen last near the back stairwell, right next to that same window. I didn't want to believe it, but it explained too much. I decided to test it. The following night, I left my sketchbook open on my desk before sleeping, hoping maybe I'd dream about drawing instead. But the dream had other plans. The classroom was darker this time, lit only by the dim light through the window. The girl, Lila, was standing closer than before. She looked different, more solid, like she'd been feeding on the attention I was giving her. You can see me now, she whispered. So you can help me. She lifted her hand, pressing it to the glass again. Except the glass started cracking under her fingers, thin lines spreading outward. I shouted in the dream, "What do you want from me?" She tilted her head. "I want to go home." Then the glass shattered. I woke up screaming. My mom burst into my room. There were tiny cuts on my hand, thin, shallow lines like I'd grabbed broken glass in my sleep. At school, I avoided the art room for a few days. But something weird happened. Every time I walked past that hallway, the fluorescent light outside the classroom flickered. Once I even heard faint tapping from inside when no one was there. One afternoon, the art teacher asked me to help clean up brushes before closing. I hesitated but said yes, partly out of guilt, partly out of curiosity. While cleaning, I noticed something on the window frame. Scratches, small ones, like fingernails had dug into the wood. I traced them with my thumb, and for just a second the glass felt warm. That night I didn't dream at all. But at exactly 3:27 a.m. a knock came from my bedroom window. 3 soft taps. When I looked, nothing was there. By the next day I was done pretending it was coincidence. During art class, I sat at my old seat and stared at the window. Outside, I could see the faint reflection of clouds rolling by. Then something caught my eye, a faint handprint on the glass. I reached up to touch it. It was cold, and that's when the bell rang. I turned to grab my bag, and when I looked back, the handprint was on the inside. That night's dream was the clearest one yet. Lila stood in front of me, smiling faintly, her hair wet, her clothes clinging to her. "They never found me," she whispered. "But you can." I asked her where she was, and she turned toward the window. Outside, through the dream's warped glass, I saw stairs, the back stairwell near the old boiler room. She reached out again. "Come see me." The next day after school, I stayed late. The hallways were empty, and the sun was already low, staining everything orange. I found the stairwell easily. It was in a part of the building no one used anymore. The door creaked when I opened it. At the bottom of the stairs was a narrow maintenance corridor that smelled like damp dust and rusted pipes. I used my phone flashlight and started walking. That's when I saw it. A broken window half covered by boards, and beneath it something glinting in the dust. It was a silver bracelet. Tarnished, but the engraving was still visible. LMI didn't touch it. I just stood there frozen, my breath visible in the cold air. When I finally turned to leave, the hallway lights above me flickered. And for half a second I saw her, Lila, standing at the far end of the corridor watching me. Then she was gone. That night I fell asleep almost instantly. Exhaustion had finally caught up with me. The dream started differently. I wasn't in the classroom anymore, I was in the stairwell. The light was dim, the air damp. I could hear water dripping somewhere. Lila appeared in front of me, clearer than ever before. She wasn't terrifying this time, just sad. "Thank you," she said softly. "You found me." I asked her what she meant. She just smiled and stepped backward into the shadows. Then, behind her, I saw something. Bricks, old and cracked, with a faint outline that looked like a door. When I woke up, I couldn't shake that image. The next day, I told the school custodian about the old corridor and asked if there had ever been construction work there. He looked surprised and said that years ago they'd sealed off a small utility room after a pipe burst. The next week, police were on campus. They reopened the section. Inside the sealed room, behind a half-collapsed wall, they found what was left of a girl's uniform. DNA confirmed it a month later. It was Lila Moreno. I didn't dream about her again for months. I thought it was over. Until one night during my first year of college, I woke up from a nap on my dorm desk. The light from my desk lamp flickered. I looked toward the small window by my bed and froze. A faint handprint glowed against the glass, not large enough to be mine, and from somewhere outside, just beyond the window pane, came 3 slow, deliberate taps. People at Ridgeview still talk about the case. They say it was a tragic accident, that Lila must have fallen when the stairwell flooded. But I know that's not the whole truth. Because in my dreams now the setting changes, sometimes a library, sometimes my dorm, but the window is always there. And sometimes, late at night when I'm half awake, I hear the same whisper right next to my ear. You left it open. I've moved 3 times since then, but every new room I stay in. The window faces east, just like that old classroom. And every year, around October, I wake up to the sound of a bell that doesn't exist anymore. It rings once, then stops. There's something about hospitals at night that feels wrong. It's too quiet. The machines hum softly. Lights flicker dimly, and every sound echoes like it's traveling through miles of empty hallways. I worked as a night nurse at Brookwell General for 3 years. It wasn't a big hospital, just one of those old brick buildings that looks tired even in daylight. But at night it felt like the entire place was holding its breath. I started having the dreams after my 3rd month. It was a Thursday. I'd been assigned to the night ward, room 409, an old isolation room that barely got used anymore. There was one patient that night, a man in his 70s named Walter Griggs. He'd come in after a mild stroke. He was quiet, kind even. He always said thank you when I checked his IV or gave him his meds. That night he smiled when I brought him water. "Don't stay up too late, miss," he said. "Night makes people see things that aren't really there." I laughed, thinking he was joking. But when I went home that morning, I dreamed of him. In the dream, Walter was standing by the window of room 409. The light was strange, bluish, too bright for a hospital room. He turned toward me, and I noticed he looked younger, healthier. He smiled and said, "It's quieter now." I woke up suddenly, my heart racing. I didn't think much of it, just a weird dream after a long shift. That evening, when I came in, the head nurse pulled me aside. Walter Griggs had passed away that morning, peacefully, no warning signs. I didn't tell anyone about the dream. I just told myself it was coincidence. A week later, it happened again. This time the patient was Evelyn Moore, a 60-year-old woman recovering from surgery. Sweet lady, always humming to herself. I dreamed she was walking down the hospital hallway in her gown, dragging her IV stand behind her. The hall stretched endlessly, the lights flickering one by one. When she reached the last door at the end, she turned to me and whispered, "I'm going home." The next morning, I found out she'd died in her sleep around 3:15 a.m., the same time I'd woken up from the dream. 2 nights, 2 dreams. 2 deaths. That's when the fear began. Over the next few months, it became a grim routine. Whenever I dreamed about a patient, they'd die within 24 hours. Sometimes I'd see them standing at their bed, looking out the window. Sometimes walking down the hall toward that same endless door. And always, they'd say something about going home. At first, I tried warning my coworkers, but after the 2nd or 3rd time, people started avoiding me. Some even joked that I was cursed. I started dreading sleep. But no matter how long I stayed awake, the dreams always found me. Then one night, something changed. A young man named Caleb Jones had been admitted after a car accident. He was in critical condition but stable, just needed observation. That night, I sat by his bedside, adjusting his monitors. His eyes fluttered open and he said quietly, "You look tired. You should rest." I smiled weakly and told him I'd sleep when my shift ended. When I finally got home around 7 a.m., I collapsed on my couch and instantly fell asleep. This dream was different. I wasn't in the hospital. I was in a field of tall grass under a silver sky. Caleb stood ahead of me, perfectly fine, no bandages, no pain. He turned around slowly. "You shouldn't have stayed so long," he said. "They notice when you do. Who notices?" I asked. He just looked past me over my shoulder. The ones who never left. Then I woke up to the sound of my phone ringing. It was the hospital. Caleb had gone into cardiac arrest an hour earlier. After that, I couldn't take it anymore. I started working fewer shifts, trying to move to the day rotation, but night seemed to follow me. Sometimes when I walked through the ward after midnight, I'd swear I heard footsteps, soft, dragging ones, behind me. Other times I'd pass an empty room and see someone standing at the window. When I'd look again, the room would be empty. I told myself I was hallucinating from exhaustion, until the night I saw the hallway. It was around 2:30 a.m. I was checking supplies when I noticed a door I didn't recognize at the far end of the corridor. It wasn't usually there. It led to an old section that had been sealed off for years, but the door was open. A faint blue light spilled out. I walked closer, my heart pounding, and saw the same hallway from my dreams, dim, flickering lights, walls that seemed too long, too narrow, and at the far end, that same door. When I blinked, the light went out. The door was gone. Just a blank wall. A few weeks later, a new patient arrived. Margaret Hale, late 80s, advanced dementia. She barely spoke, just stared at the ceiling most of the time. The first night she was in, she suddenly grabbed my wrist as I adjusted her blanket. Her grip was shockingly strong. She looked me dead in the eyes and said, "You're not supposed to see them." I froze. "See who?" She smiled faintly. "The ones waiting in the hall." Then she closed her eyes and wouldn't speak again. That night I dreamed of her too. But this time she wasn't walking toward the door. She was standing in front of it, blocking it, shaking her head. "Don't open it," she whispered. "If you do, they'll come through." When I woke up, I couldn't breathe. My chest felt heavy, the air thick. My bedside clock read 3:27 a.m. When I got to work, I found out Margaret had died, peacefully according to the report, at exactly 3:27 a.m. I tried quitting. I wrote the resignation letter and everything. But the hospital was understaffed, and the head nurse begged me to stay until they hired someone else. So I agreed to one last week of nights. The first shift back, the air felt heavier than usual. The monitors beeped slower, softer. The hallway lights flickered more than normal. Around 3 a.m., I went to check room 409, the same room where Walter Griggs had died months ago. It was empty now, used for storage. As I opened the door, a cold draft brushed past me. The air smelled faintly like antiseptic and old rain. Then I heard it. A whisper. "Come see." I froze. The sound came from the far corner. I turned on my flashlight, and there for just a second I saw a shape standing by the window. It looked like a person, but the skin was too pale, the eyes too dark. Then it was gone. When I looked again, the window was slightly open. That morning, I barely made it home. I collapsed onto the couch, shaking. I told myself I wouldn't sleep, but my body didn't care. I found myself back in the hallway again. The blue light was brighter now, almost blinding. The door at the end was open. Dozens of figures stood inside, gray, half-transparent, whispering in overlapping voices. I recognized some of them. Walter, Evelyn, Caleb, Margaret. They all looked calm, peaceful. Then one voice rose above the others. It was Walter's. "You stayed too long, miss. Now you see what we see?" I tried to step back, but my feet wouldn't move. The floor felt like it was pulling me forward. Margaret reached out from the crowd. "Close the door," she screamed. "Before it finds you." Behind her, something huge moved in the light, a shadow with too many limbs, too many faces. I screamed and slammed the door shut. Then everything went black. When I woke up, it was night again. I was still on my couch, my phone ringing beside me. It was the hospital. The head nurse sounded shaken. A fire had broken out in the old storage section, room 409. No one had been in there, but one of the security cameras caught something strange before the flames started. A faint light appeared under the door, and the motion sensor triggered. The camera glitched right after. When they checked the feed frame by frame, there was a figure standing in the hallway, someone wearing a nurse's uniform, but the timestamp was from 3:27 a.m., and I'd been home. I quit the next day and moved to another town, but sleep hasn't been the same since. Every few nights I wake up standing by my bedroom window, staring out into the dark without remembering how I got there. And once, just once, I caught my reflection smiling back at me when I wasn't smiling. Sometimes I think about what Walter said, about the ones who notice when you stay too long. I wonder if maybe, by seeing them, I somehow let them see me too. And sometimes, when I close my eyes, I hear the hum of hospital machines and the faint, steady whisper of the night ward calling me back. Come see.